स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय Ramakrishnaय te नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us bow down to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Sri Ramakrishna said to Pandit Shashadhar that it is very good to pray to God. Whatever you want, it will be granted by God. He is Kalpataru. He fulfills whatever desires you may have. In fact, we are all enjoying the life in the world some way or other. Why people are suffering? In order to enjoy. Why people are traveling from one place to another? In order to enjoy. So, to get happiness, that is the important point. Everyone aspires for that. So, because he gets now and then the taste of joy, he wants to have it more and more, more and more. But then he finds it too difficult to get the joy all the time. But whatever joy he gets in this world, he finds it is inadequate. It is not satisfactory. It doesn't keep him in peace. On the other hand, it makes him more and more restless. Why? Because he aspires for more and more joy. He doesn't get, so he gets upset. So the root cause of all this is desires. Nobody knows why people should get suffering, should get locked up by their desires. probably to learn that the real joy you will not get through fulfilling the desires. On the other hand, renouncing the desires, you get the real joy. So in order to learn renunciation, you are harboring the desires and passing through lots of experiences, passing through various circumstances. Finally, you conclude, well, these are all useless. What's the use of getting this type of joy, which gives more pain than joy itself? Is there any joy which I can get, which gives me peace of mind, which makes me free from sufferings? Then Sri Ramakrishna says there is joy. Do you want that joy? If you are aspiring for that joy, real joy, you have to take to spiritual path. If you want to have one type of joy, you have to reject the other type of joy which is coming on your way of acquiring the type of joy which you want. So if you want to have spiritual joy, the joy which makes you more and more peaceful, more and more steady, more and more calm, then naturally you should not hanker after any kind of worldly, sensual enjoyments. Enjoyments mean suffering. One gets attached to the things of the world. He becomes possessed by the things, and attachment is painful. So, Sri Ramakrishna explains how to get that spiritual joy by taking spiritual paths. So he was explaining to Pandit Shashidhar that real joy one can experience only in samadhi state. Now he is telling what is samadhi. That is the final stage. Once you attain that state of samadhi, there is nothing more to be attained. Once you get into that state, that is the highest state, which gives you the maximum result, that is supreme joy. Supreme peace is synonymous with supreme joy. Finally, you get into that most wonderful state. So Sri Ramakrishna is explaining samadhi. It is the complete merging of the mind in God consciousness. Whatever form of God you are worshipping, your whole being must be in that God. You should not separate yourself from your God because He is your most beloved, for whose sake You have renounced everything for whose sake you have dedicated yourself. So, you will have to take different steps to lead the mind towards that state. Of course, you have to exert strong will. You must have strong spiritual aspiration. Then only it is possible to divert the mind, which is looking towards the world, to turn to God. That means it's a very practical life. You have to be intensely practical in your spiritual path in order to achieve the state of samadhi. All the paths in this spiritual life lead to this supreme joy. The experience enjoyed by the jnani, one who follows the path of knowledge, and the experience which the devotee enjoys by following the path of bhakti, it's all one and the same. Only it has got different names. The jnani, the person who is pursuing the path of knowledge, he experiences jada samadhi, in which there is no trace of I, there is no individual consciousness anymore. It's a state of perfect bliss, and he is supremely satisfied in that bliss. He doesn't want to come down from that state, because the joy is such, he is feeling impossible to come down from that highest level. The devotee who follows the path of devotion, he also gets into a state of samadhi. So samadhi state can be attained by anybody following any spiritual path. Only thing is, the spiritual path must be followed with all attention, with all devotion, with reverential faith. Then result will come automatically. In Chetana Samadhi, what happens? The devotee retains his I consciousness. I am the devotee. I am the servant. I love to serve the master. God is my master. So, the devotee cherishes the relationship as the devotee, the servant, God the master, or of the lover and beloved relationship, or of the enjoyer and food relationship. God is the master, the devotee is his servant. God is the beloved, the devotee is the lover. God is the food and the devotee is the enjoyer. I don't want to be sugar, I want to eat it. So, Sri Ramakrishna explains, the supreme bliss the devotee enjoys, having the vision of God, and he is supremely satisfied in that state. He wants to enjoy it perpetually. He doesn't want to merge his I consciousness in God. He wants to retain his individuality in order to taste the love of God. Sometimes God himself will allow the trace of I to remain in the devotee so that the devotee can enjoy the play of God. Even those who have attained Jada Samadhi, those whose I consciousness have been completely merged in the God consciousness, even there, some jnanis who are following the path of knowledge, who have attained that supreme bliss, still some are able to retain the trace of ego in order to teach the humanity, in order to show to the humanity the way to God. Anyway, what is needed here is how you will give training to your mind. The whole spiritual practice depends upon how you control the mind. How you consciously try to get rid of all the dirt inside the mind. So, in the beginning, rigorous discipline is to be followed. You have to make the mind sit and think of God. You have to make the mind work for God. You have to fill in the mind with all spiritual ideas, the uplifting, elevating ideas. So you have to be very careful what type of spiritual ideas you are feeding into the mind. Once you have fed the mind with those ideas, they are just absorbed by the mind. So, one has to be careful about what he is feeding into the mind. What are you giving to the mind? You should be extremely careful in all these steps. Then only it is possible to keep the mind free from any more impurities getting into it. And then you will be able to concentrate on your chosen God, whatever God you are worshipping, The same God consciousness is being worshipped by many people in many ways. So just you follow the path. You don't have to criticize anybody. You don't have to make any comments on anybody. You don't have to even look into what others are doing, why he is like that, why he is like that. Why should you have to bother? All botheration you do for your own mind. You bother about your own self. That's all. Once you are cleared, once you reach that highest state, then once you get the illumination, then you yourself feel joyful to share that experience with everyone. You don't want to run away from the world. You don't discard the world. You don't hate the world. On the other hand, you love the world. You feel intensely sympathetic. You feel highly compassionate, highly forgiving. All these most wonderful spiritual qualities will come to you on account of your experience of supreme joy with God. Thenceforward, God works through you. He gets things done through you. He puts complete confidence in you to get His work done. So He makes use of you to spread the message of spirituality to the people. That is how the seers, having realized the highest truth of Brahman, gave out to the disciples and specified how the goal should be approached, how you should prepare yourself thoroughly so that you can move forward without any hindrance. So, the spiritual texts on the one hand and the spiritual teacher on the other always help the devotee or the spiritual aspirant to go in the spiritual path. So what is important is, if you are really aspiring for the spiritual joy, it only shows that you must give sufficient time and energy in that direction. But what we find, though we are all aspiring to be spiritual, but our activities, our mind, everything seem to go in a different way. So you find, even though you are in the spiritual path, you are passing through lots of worries, problems, tensions, sufferings, and so on. So, as I said earlier, the whole spiritual life depends upon how you tackle your mind, how you handle your mind. Your mind, you alone should try to know it. Go deep into it, observe it, follow, watch the mind, how it runs, where it runs, why it runs, all those things. Then you will understand why it is all going on this way, then it should be possible to you to take remedial steps to see that mind behaves well thereafter. So, constant spiritual struggle, effort is important. Sri Ramakrishna is telling Pandit Shashadhar to step into spiritual practices more seriously. And when he asked whether he had read Srimad Bhagavatam, which deals with the story of Lord Krishna and which deals with spiritual ideas, Pandit Shashadhar said he had not read. He did not know. Then Sri Ramakrishna told him, well, now you read. Now you read. And pray to God. He will hear your prayer. He is Kalpataru. He will grant whatever you really aspire for. These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. He said, God is Kalpataru. He hears your prayers. He responds to your prayers. Pray to Him. He fulfills whatever you want. So if you want to have Chetana Samadhi, to enjoy the bliss of the vision of God, pray to Him to have it. Set the mind in that direction. Train the mind. And certainly you will get that. Sri Ramakrishna assures that a spiritual aspirant struggling sincerely, surely gets into state of samadhi, a blissful state. There is a story, a young boy who was ill-treated by his stepmother. The boy became very sad. See, the boy was playing. There is another boy, the boy of the stepmother. So both of them were playing. They are playing together. After some time, the father came. The father was the king. He came and sat on the throne. Immediately the stepmother came. She also sat by the side of the king. As soon as the dad and mom came there, naturally the children will run. So the boy, the first boy, not born to the stepmother, he ran and sat on the lap of the father. Then immediately the stepmother's boy, he came running and weeping. Oh, I should sit. Immediately, what did the stepmother do? She drew away the boy who was sitting on the lap of the father and made her son to sit on the lap. Actually, the first boy was thrown out. He became very sad. He did not know the reason why he was thrown out. He did not know why was he insulted that way by the stepmother, what fault he had done. He couldn't understand any of these things. So naturally, that boy went to his mother. His mother, she was the first queen of the king. The second one was the younger one, younger queen. Well, the mother told the boy, "Why are you weeping? You want to sit on the lap of your father, he didn't allow, etc. Go and tell Narayan, he will give you whatever you want." Then the boy asked, "Who is that Narayan?" "Narayan is God. Go and ask him." The boy took literally what the mother said. The boy was little boy, so he had that implicit faith. He had so much devotion to mother. Well, mother has told me I should, why not I go and ask Narayan? So he went out, going in the street, asking people where Narayan would be, etc., etc. Fortunately, he was met by Maharshi Narad. He was very much fascinated to see this boy, and he called him, pacified him, and told him, "Well, it is true. What your mother has said is true. You will get whatever you are aspiring for. Go and call God. Call Narayan. He will come to you." How to call? He told him, like this you call him. He gave the mantra to him. So, he initiated him in the path. And he told him to follow the spiritual instructions. How to sit, how to concentrate, etc. Accordingly, the boy started practices with all earnestness. His only thought was to have the vision of Narayan, to see him immediately, as early as possible. That's all. There is nothing inside his mind. Moreover, he was a young boy. He does not know anything of this world. He just has come to know only about Narayan, and so he is meditating on Narayan. And finally, Narayan came, gave the darshan. The boy was supremely joyful to see. Then Narayan said, "Well, you seem to be so joyful. What are you seeing?" And the boy said, "I am seeing you." "Where?" "I am seeing you in my mind, with my eyes closed." Then Narayan said, "Open your eyes and see me. Open your eyes. It's all right. You have seen me closing your eyes. Open your eyes. I am standing in front of you." Then he opened the eyes. He was supremely joyful to see the same form as he was seeing in the mind. That is called Chetana Samadhi. In that state, the devotee doesn't want anything. He rejects anything if asked for. That's what literally happened. When Narayan asked the boy, "Well, you have been meditating so long, and I have been impressed so much by your love and devotion. Ask for whatever you want. I am ready to grant the boon to you. Lovingly I give you. You enjoy." Then, with tears shedding, the boy said, "Narayan, what do I want? Why should I want? What for I should ask for? As per the things? I have got fulfillment in seeing you. I am wholeheartedly telling, I don't need anything. Please don't give me anything. Don't give me anything. I have got the fulfillment. I just want to taste this joy of seeing you. That's all that I wanted. Please be always present in my mind so that I am free from all alien thoughts as long as I live in this mortal frame. Let me constantly see you and be in that happy state. Narayan was highly pleased. He could tell that way because the boy was pure at heart. The boy was extremely pure. Because of his purity, Srimad Narayan came there to give darshan to him. He proved his purity by his answer. And then Srimad Narayan told, well, very good. I grant you that you will always have the vision of myself. Whenever you want, just you remember me, I will be present. Now, I want you to go back to your father. I want you to rule the kingdom for sufficient time. Now you are looking after the kingdom, you are ruling, you have to look after the welfare of the people, work for the betterment of the society. All these things you have to do just for the sake of myself. For the love of God you do. You are doing them not for yourself, because you have totally given yourself to me. So you have no self of your own. I am telling you to go. Now whatever you do, you are doing for me. Don't worry. When Narayan gave this assurance, he became very cheerful, and he felt immense strength inside, because God himself is supplying that spiritual strength to that boy. The boy came. The parents were very happy to see the boy glowing with a wonderful aura, the aura of purity. It was so attractive, fascinating. He became man of illumination. So he is telling Pandit Shashidhar, it's all right, you have read so many books. Your academic stage you have passed. Now you start practical life. Pray to God. Read Bhagavad. You will have the vision of God. These are the assurances of Sri Ramakrishna to Pandit Shashidhar. Whatever path you may follow, you are certainly getting supreme joy. With these words I conclude my comments. Page 484. Sri Ramakrishna said regarding the Pandit Shashidhar's character, 483, last para, Master said, he has such a nice nature. You find no difficulty in driving a nail into a mud wall, but its point breaks if you try to drive it against a stone, and still it will not pierce it. There are people whose spiritual consciousness is not at all awakened, even though they hear about God 1,000 times. They are like a crocodile on whose hide you can't make any impression with a sword. Pandit Shashidhar said, but one can hurt a crocodile by throwing a spear into its belly. All laugh. Master smilingly said, what good is there in reading a whole lot of scriptures? What good is there in the study of philosophy? What is the use of talking big In order to learn archery, one should first aim at a banana tree, then at a reed, then at a wick, and at last at a flying bird. At the beginning, one should concentrate on God with form. Then there are devotees who are beyond the three gunas. They are eternally devoted to God, like Narad. These devotees behold Krishna as Chinmay, all spirit. His abode is Chinmay, his devotee as Chinmay. To them God is eternal, his abode is eternal, his devotee is eternal. Those who reason and speculate following the process of neti, not this, don't accept the incarnation of God. Hazra says, well, that divine incarnation is only for the bhakta and not for the jnani, because the jnani is quite contented with his ideal, I am he, sohamasmi. Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees remained silent a while. The Pandit resumed the conversation. Pandit said, Sir, how does one get rid of callousness? Laughter makes me think of muscles and nerves. Grief makes me think of the nervous system. Master, smiling, that's why Narayan Shastri used to say, the harmful effect of the study of the scriptures is that it encourages reasoning and arguing. Pandit said, is there no way for us then? Master said, yes, there is the path of discrimination. In a song occurs the line, ask her son discrimination about the truth. The way lies through discrimination, renunciation, and passionate yearning for God. Unless a man practices discrimination, he cannot utter the right words. One time, after expounding religion at great length, Pandit Samadhyayi said, God is dry. He reminded me of the man who once said, my uncle's cowshed is full of horses. Now, does anyone keep horses in a cowshed? With a smile, you have become like a chana bara, a Bengali sweetmeat made from cheese, first fried in butter and then soaked in syrup. Now, it will be good for you and for others as well if you are soaked in syrup a few days, just a few days. Pandit, smiling, said, the sweetmeat is over-fried. It has become charred. Master said with a laugh, no, it is brown as a cockroach. Just the right color. The sweetmeat is well cooked. It has become spongy. Now it will soak up the syrup nicely. Master said, you see, there is no need to read too much of the scriptures. If you read too much, you will be inclined to reason and argue. Nangta, that is Totapuri, used to teach me thus, what you get by repeating the word Gita 10 times is the essence of the book. In other words, if you repeat Gita 10 times, it is reversed into Tyagi, which indicates renunciation. Yes, the way to realize God is through discrimination, renunciation, and yearning for Him. What kind of yearning? One should yearn for God as the cow with yearning heart runs after its calf. We shall stop here. Now questions? Sam?
When do you surrender?
There are so many ways of prayers. One is, if you surrender totally, you leave everything to God. That's one way. If you follow that path, wonderful, go ahead. But Sri Ramakrishna is telling you, in order to develop close relationship with God, he says God is your very own. You can ask anything you want with God. So, if you ask God to give you devotion, discrimination, if you ask God to make your spiritual life successful, it will be granted. On the other hand, if you ask for worldly ambitions, if you want to prosper in a worldly way, that also will be granted. What is needed, the point here which Sri Ramakrishna wants to tell is that God is your very own. When you approach God, when you come closer to God, you find that you don't like worldly desires anymore. On the other hand, when your love becomes intensified towards God, you feel you want nothing but God Himself. Just as that Narayan, Dhruva, the young boy's name was Dhruva, he just began to love God by just repeating the name of God, as instructed by Narad. He began to feel that Narayan, his own supreme beloved, would come and grant his prayers. So he went on calling on him. And because of the intensity of his calling, Lord came to him and gave darshan to him. It is because of the intense calling, Divine Mother Kali gave vision to Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna said, if you have intense longing, yearning to see God, you will certainly see Him. But then, intense longing is possible, intense yearning is possible only when the mind becomes transparent. That means when the mind is raised from the worldly impressions. Then it becomes very easy for you to concentrate, meditate, and follow the spiritual path with all zealousness. Everything becomes easy once you find mind is cooperating with you. So even though you may feel intensely longing to see God, you are not able to practice spirituality in the way you should do. That's because the mind is not cooperating. That's because of so many other factors. So many inbuilt desires are there in the mind. So, on account of all these negative forces acting upon in our mind is not inclined towards God. So even though you wanted to have the vision of God, you are not able to get it because the mind is not under your control. That's the point. Elena, Sam. Because Sri Ramakrishna himself said, because when I saw Sam, I got that analogy. Food and the enjoyer. God is the food, you are the enjoyer. Literally. See, today he prepared a wonderful dish. How Sri Ramakrishna, how his words tally. Then I take the position of enjoyer. So God, this world, God has given this world so that we can enjoy the world in the proper way. Because we don't know how to enjoy it, we land in suffering. That's a different issue. Sri Ramakrishna also lived in this world. He himself said the whole world is a very joyful place, because here you can express yourself, all your sentiments. You can enjoy the divine play in the world. If the world is not there, how can you have that feeling of enjoyment? So, what Sri Ramakrishna said is true. But that spiritual concept is very important. You must build up that concept very strongly, with strong foundations. Then it becomes easy. Any more?
One of the things I have found is if you can learn to accept His will, everything is, you can take it as things which will make you sad, will make you enjoyable. It's fine. That's
Good.
what you want me to do? What you want? That's fine. I'll accept it.
No, that is true. If you have that firm faith, everything is done according to the will of God. That's a remarkable conviction. If you have that firm conviction that God's will is prevailing, you are really blessed. But you have to maintain that. If you maintain that attitude, then you will not suffer, because you feel everything is God's will. But you should not at any moment say, sometimes God's will, sometimes different. No, that will not work. If you hold on to that one principle, everything is God's will, period. Have that ideal and work towards achieving that goal. But thinking about Him, meditating on Him is important. So when you say everything is done according to God's will, you should switch on yourself to God's will in a proper way. That's very important. Tuning yourself to God's will is important. If you tell it is God's will, and at the same time, if a person indulges in bad things, how can it happen that way? Any more? Do you have? Frank Orlana. You can take the mic.
I was just going to make a comment about Pandit Sheshadhar. And he was, I thought, studying a little bit about it, I thought he was a very noble person. He was a very popular speaker at that time, and he had quite a following. He was also quite a bit older than Ramakrishna was, and yet he showed him a lot of reverence and regarded him as a teacher. So it showed a certain amount of humility, I think. And he was also came to Kasipur in December of 1885, and it was he that suggested to Ramakrishna that he heal his cancer of the throat through his yogic power.
Pandit Sheshadhar said what?
He suggested to Ramakrishna that he heal himself of his cancer, which is a well-known incident in his biography.
But the greatness of Sri Ramakrishna is he didn't want to cure that cancer by yogic power. In fact, there was one devotee, his name was Nag Mahashay. He came to see Sri Ramakrishna during his last days. Sri Ramakrishna was lying on the bed, suffering from the throat cancer. He could not take any food properly. He was living on liquid diet. Even that liquid also he could not take properly because of his throat cancer. So with great difficulty he was pulling on his life. Nagmasha came. He looked at Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna just looked at him with the idea, well, this body is suffering like this, what can be done? Is there any way to cure it? Immediately, Nag Mahasaya, one of the great devotees, he said to Sri Ramakrishna right then, well, Master, give me order right now. Right now you give me order. I am prepared to take your disease. You will be freed from the cancer immediately. Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and he felt that Nagmasha could do that because his faith in Sri Ramakrishna was full. He had such tremendous faith and love in Sri Ramakrishna. And if he says he will do, it will be done. That's God's power. Immediately he said, no, don't do that. I know. Just I wanted to test you, so don't worry. And Sri Ramakrishna himself explained why he had to suffer cancer. He didn't have any karmic reasoning, just as we give reason for, oh, we did something in the past, so we suffered like this, that, etc. What Sri Ramakrishna did something wrong that way, in order to suffer like this. But Sri Ramakrishna himself answers, I am suffering by this throat cancer because I burnt away all the impurities of Girish Chandra Ghosh, who had committed maximum crimes in this world. Girish Chandra Ghosh himself declared, I am the worst man, most wicked man in this earth. These are the expressions of Girish Chandra Ghosh. And here is Sri Ramakrishna, who lifted him up, purified him thoroughly, gave him the spiritual direction, made his life blessed. In turn, he suffered for him. That is how you find Lord Christ's crucifixion. Why Lord Christ has to suffer? For the sake of the humanity, he took all the sufferings himself. They are all remarkable souls. Selfless suffering. Suffering on account of karmic theory is one thing. That has got different reactions. But suffering for the sake of others, that is uplifting. Swami Vivekananda came without a penny, without warm cloth, without any friends, coming all the way from India to America. How much he suffered. But suffering for the sake of humanity. Because just as we say selfless work, like this also, selfless suffering. Suffering for the sake of giving peace and joy to the people, so that people can be properly directed towards spiritual path. He was ready to undergo any suffering. Yeah.
Did Buddha suffer?
Huh?
Buddha, Bodhisattva. Did Buddha suffer?
See, there are so many ways of suffering. Buddha accepted anybody who would come to him, and he transformed many people towards spiritual way of life. As far as he is concerned, he was not afraid of anything. He was a personification of peacefulness. Even if the suffering comes, he is not bothered about that. And many times he was insulted, many times people would torture him in many ways. Actually, the story goes he was even poisoned, but he never reacted. So, he suffered in a different way. Throughout his life, tirelessly, leading the people, diverting the people towards spiritual path, removing all the bad samskaras of the people. That he did. About his personal life, we are not aware. Those recordings are not there. But he must have suffered, but he never disclosed it. Sometimes the spiritual masters, they won't say they're suffering at all to anybody. They just suffer. There's another beauty. They won't tell. Simply they suffer. And we shall conclude.